So you picked up some yarn and some knitting needles. Now what? If you're a beginner knitter, feeling a little bit stuck, I've got 10 tips that will make knitting so much easier for you. And if you're already a knitter pro, please stick around. I'd love to hear how your top tips compared to mine and what you wish you knew when you started. Oh, and stick around till the end if you'd like to see my first knitting and crochet attempts. They might just make you feel better about your own progress. Now, I only started taking knitting seriously about a year ago, and in that short time, through the power of YouTube, I've learned how to make lots of garments, accessories, and if I could do it, so can you. So what do you actually need to get started? Well, obviously needles and yarn, that's the basics of knitting. But some pitfalls I've seen is that people might choose style over substance. There's a few high street shops now selling pretty reasonably priced, cute looking wooden needles, and they're as rough as sandpaper. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but my friend was using these needles from Surstone Green, and the yarn just kept getting stuck on the cable join because it was too big. The metal needles look fine though. So I really recommend that for your first needles, you try to get some familiar household knitting names. The brands will probably vary wildly depending on what country you live in, but Knitpro, otherwise known as Knitter's Pride in the US, is a very famous company. There's Chiagu, Pony, Clover, brands like that. Just do some Googling. Personally, I use the Knitpro Symphony needles. I think wooden needles are good as long as they're smooth and good quality because they do have that added grip. And when you're first learning, you don't want all of your stitches to just slide right off the needle. That will be no good to anybody. I've also seen people make their lives really difficult by choosing bad yarn. And of course, I'm not talking about the quality per se. It's more that some yarns are easier to knit with than others. For example, take mohair or any fine, fluffy yarn. You won't be able to see those stitches, which is really key when you're learning just where to put your needle. Likewise, any yarn that's too small or too big or too rough and too scratchy just won't give you any favors. So if I were you, I would start with a simple superwash wool, something that feels smooth to the touch and has a little bit of stretch to it. Cotton's also really good when it comes to visibility, but if you have any kind of wrist pain, it may not be the yarn for you. When it comes to any other tools, you can use paper clips or safety pins as stitch markers. You really don't need a ball winder or a swift. I still don't have one. I can do it all by hand. Even when it comes to yarn bowls, I just use some kitchen mixing bowls or even a breakfast cereal bowl. Again, you don't want to make the mistake of purchasing something that won't work at this stage. Wooden yarn bowls, for example, might have splinters in them that can catch on the wool. I really think that investing in just a couple of good quality needles and some yarn that you're not too worried or precious about wasting is the way to go. I should also mention I 100% recommend using these circular needles. It can be a bit confusing when you're not sure how long these cable parts should be and how long the needle part should be and how you measure it all together. But at the end of the day, if you're knitting something flat like a scarf, it really doesn't matter how long everything is, and you probably will be knitting flat to begin with. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. Interchangeable needles are sort of the long-term thing that I would recommend, but if you're just starting out, feel free to get the fixed circulars like these. I also have the habit when I get into a new hobby to go buy a load of books about it, but when it comes time to actually learning, I really learn best by videos. So those books are really pretty, but if you're trying to save money and you don't like learning from textbooks, then probably I would say save your money for now. So you may already know, but there is more than one way to knit. The main two being continental style, also known as picking, or English style, which is throwing. Now I do English style, but I think continental is growing in popularity due to the fact that the hand movements are smaller, means that your knitting progress can be faster. Personally, I like English style because I can get the tension better, and I've never really got the tensioning right with continental style. Despite people saying it's similar to crochet, a lot of crochet people find the transition over to continental knitting really easy. But yeah, my point is try both methods and see which one you prefer, because maybe if you've tried one and you haven't liked it, the other one is for you. And if neither of those are working for you, well, there actually are a few more techniques as well. For example, Portuguese knitting, which is where they tension the yarn behind their necks, which is really interesting, as well as Shetland knitting, where they have a sort of holder in their belt for the needle. And then there's also lever knitting or flicking. The point I'm trying to get to is maybe there's a technique or a way of holding the needle and yarn that you just haven't tried yet that will make you fall in love with knitting. My next tip is to learn to read your knitting. Now, this is something that I tried to learn by following YouTube tutorials, and I really think it's just something that comes with practice, with staring at the yarn, staring at the row that you've just made, looking at what a purl looks like, what a make one left looks like, so then you can tell where you were in your knitting pattern. Did you actually make an increase or did you forget? All that good stuff. Something that blew my mind when I was a beginner knitter is that a purl is just the back side of a knit, and a knit is the back side of a purl. It's sort of like a yin and yang situation. You can't have one without the other. And when you're knitting in the round, that's why you create stockinette if just by knitting, whereas when it's flat, you need to knit and purl when you're on the other side. So it's all about that yin-yang situation where they're creating that stockinette stitch. I think you should also pay attention to the side that the yarn tail is falling, where your knitting has happened and where your next stitch will be. And you might notice things like the knitting you create is going clockwise. So when you unravel or pick back your work, then you'll know which direction to go. And again, when you lay your knitting down to have a break and come back to it, you'll easily be able to see, oh, my tail is coming from the right-hand side. I have just done a row of purls and I need to keep on purling. It definitely took me a few months to even recognize the difference between a knit and a purl, so I wouldn't feel too bad if you can't tell the difference either yet. But yeah, just keep practicing. Just when you're knitting, take a mental note to go a bit slower and look exactly where your needle's moving, where the yarn is going, and what the stitch you've just created looks like. Now, something I had trouble with when I was first starting out was choosing the correct kind of project to start with and what project I might want to do next, where to even find projects. So my recommendation would be, when you're starting out and you're not sure if this is something you're going to be doing for the rest of your life, is there are plenty of free patterns and free tutorials on YouTube. I think it's quite traditional to start out with a stockinette scarf. Yes, it will curl in on itself. Don't be one of the 1,000 of people to post to Reddit asking why that's happening. It's again because of that yin-yang formation, a purl slightly smaller, so it curves in on each other. Anyway, you probably won't be wearing your first knits, so yeah, start with a stockinette scarf till you're confident with stockinette. And then there's plenty of other small projects you can do. Like if you want to learn how to knit in the round, I think a cowl, just a circle around the neck, maybe in a waffle stitch, to try out a different pattern is a good starting point. Also fingerless gloves, and yes, even socks. There are some great sock tutorials on YouTube. When you're finally ready to try your first sweater, I highly recommend the video tutorial by Florence Miller. That was my first sweater, and I even did the German short rows because her tutorials are so very clear, and I still wear my jumper. I'm very proud of it, and I think you can't go wrong with making a step-by-step sweater as your first garment. I really think a good strategy is to think of 1 or 2 techniques you want to learn and think what sort of pattern or tutorial might be a good piece to learn those techniques. For example, if you want to move on from stockinette to do some ribbing, some increases, some decreases, then yes, something like a mitten or a sock would be good. Now, if you can't find the patterns you're looking for on YouTube, you can always search on Ravelry.com. That's sort of the main database of knitting and knitting patterns that knitters use. It can be a little bit complicated, but basically to find the pattern you want to go to the pattern section, advanced search, and then you can scroll down and use all the filters that are available on the left. So you can choose the type of clothing or accessory or home decor item you want, for the age, and you can filter by techniques, basically anything you can think of. So that brings me on to my next point, which is don't be too scared of these advanced techniques. I promise it's really not as difficult as they sound. Things like German short rows, once you sort of get the hang of it, it is just turning your work and twisting a stitch around to the back. It again becomes muscle memory with time. Color work, cables, lace, all of them look a lot more difficult than they are. I really promise you that. If you're too scared to make something right away, why not just do a swatch just to learn the technique? It's a really good way to build up your confidence. And I'm sure you've got that dream jumper of yours or a favorite sock that you wish you could knit yourself, and you want to know the techniques to do that. Those dream projects really motivate you to grow your skill as a knitter. And I know that I wouldn't have got onto colourwork so soon if I wasn't desperate to own some colourwork jumpers myself. Now, this is less important for things like scarves and blankets, but when you come time to make things like sweaters and other garments, you really don't want to spend tens, maybe even hundreds of hours on something that won't fit or won't look like how you expected it to or drape how you expected it to. And I'm afraid the solution to this is swatching. And I know it's really tempting when you get that brand new yarn to just jump in because you're so excited to knit the project, but just take that little extra time to knit a swatch, and don't forget to block it as well, and you'll be really thankful that you did. Now, you'll hear knitters talking a lot about fibre and fibre choice. What that means is what the yarn itself is made of. Obviously, not all yarn is actually made with wool. It can be cotton, acrylic, yak, maybe even dog hair. But at the end of the day, I think if you have a yarn shop locally, it's really useful to go there in person. Just feel the yarn with your hands. What do you like? What do you not like? Some yarns you might like the feel of, but when it comes to knitting with them, it's another story. Or vice versa, maybe the softest yarn can be tricky to work with. It often is. With time, you'll try them all out and form your own opinions. And creating little swatch cards can be really helpful, or writing notes down somewhere, maybe in Ravelry, maybe just in a good old-fashioned notebook. Now, I really recommend that beginners do a little bit of knitting every day, whether that be 5 minutes before bed, a little bit on your lunch break, first thing in the morning, whenever works for you. It's really about building that confidence, that muscle memory, And as you see your project grow bit by bit, you'll feel really excited to get it finished, and you'll learn each day to be a better knitter. As with anything, if you don't practice for a while, you may have to start again from scratch, or you might forget how to do things. So in the same way that I tried to keep up my crocheting by every so often doing a bit of crochet, when it comes to knitting, don't leave it for too long, or you'll have wasted all that work learning those techniques. Now, perhaps the most important tip is don't give up. It may seem really difficult, like you'll never get there, but each day you can learn a new skill. You can grow bit by bit, compare your most recent item to your last one, look at how you've improved. And if you get stuck, there are places you can go for help, whether that's in person to your local yarn store, to yarn meetups. Maybe you have knitters who are friends or family that can help you out. Or in my case, I use resources online like Facebook groups, and also there's subreddits too, like Our Knitting Help. And people are really friendly and willing to give out their advice to knitters. If you remember when you were a child learning to tie your shoelaces or riding a bike, you probably didn't learn those in 5 minutes. It takes time to build up that memory, and confidence is really a big thing. Like, it really did take me several days to learn how to cast on, and that was with the basic cast on, let alone the long tail cast on. But now I can do it basically without looking, and it's just something that with time, with weeks of practice, with months of practice, you will finally be able to look at your knitting and say, wow, I did that. Now, my last tip is that your items to begin with probably won't be perfect. They might not even be wearable, unless you are blessed by the knitting gods and have that amazing natural skill that I did not possess, that's for sure. So don't feel too bad. I think most people sort of look back on their first pieces fondly because of the memories, and they don't end up being kept as part of their wardrobe. But just know in time you'll make less mistakes. And the key is that yes, you can fix mistakes in knitting. You can fix a dropped stitch, which is, for example, in stockinette, if you let a stitch fall off your needle, you can just get a crochet hook, catch those lines and put it back on your needle. You can also, what's known as tinking back your work. So rather than knitting forward, you reverse exactly the things that you've just done to go back on the row. And you can do multiple rows like this, it just takes a bit of time. But yes, don't worry too much. With time and experience, you'll be able to fix mistakes when they happen. And like Bram Stoker said, we learn from failure, not success. And I absolutely believe that. With my Rosie sweater, for example, I forgot to change my needle to a larger needle size when doing the colour work, and I had to tink back many rows. And since then, I have not forgotten to change my needle size when doing colour work, and hopefully I will never forget again. Now, I promised you I would show you my first swatches of knitting and crochet. So here they are. This is my knitting and this is my crochet. Now, as you can see, there are some drop stitches, but I look back on these memories fondly as I was finally able to produce a piece of knitting, produce a piece of crochet, and I was super proud with them at the time. So yeah, a bonus extra tip I think is to take a picture of your first attempt at knitting or crochet and then have a look again in a year's time and you'll feel so proud of yourself. Now, I really hope you end up joining the knitting community, and if you do, why not subscribe to my channel? I'll be putting out new videos every week and I'd love to have you here. Thank you so much for watching today, and yeah, like I said, if you are someone who is an intermediate or advanced knitter and have tips to share yourself, please do that below. I'd be really interested to hear them. And if you're a beginner and you're still nervous about something or have any questions, you can ask me as well. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Bye bye.